afternoon. On behalf of the Royal Oak Dondero High School Hall of Fame Committee, I would like to welcome you to the 2006 Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and to thank you for taking the time to come to this special event, which caps a truly memorable weekend here at Dondero. Now, would you please rise as, under the direction of Mr. Rick Hartso, the Dondero a cappella choir will open our ceremony with the singing of the school alma mater. The alma mater, the blue and white, was composed by former faculty member Bruce McGregor. Thank you, Mr. Hartso and choir. I am Sean Dufresne, and I have been asked by the Hall of Fame Committee to preside over this special occasion because of my contribution to the creation of the Hall of Fame. I graduated from Dondero in 1989 and had the unique opportunity to experience Dondero again from the other side of the desk as a student teacher 12 years ago. It was then that one of my cooperating teachers, Larry Streeter, challenged me to spearhead an effort to create a Hall of Fame for this storied school, something he always wanted to accomplish, but his teaching and working with Student Senate kept him busy enough. I took on the challenge, not knowing what to expect, and invited the staff to attend an informational meeting in the fall of 1994. About 10 teachers showed up at the meeting, and after a brief discussion, the Hall of Fame Committee was formed. We soon added retired staff members and alumni to serve on the committee and began to establish criteria for this endeavor. Many high schools have a Hall of Fame that honors students who excel in academics or athletics while attending the school. The Hall of Fame Committee decided to have a unique purpose and criteria for selection. To be eligible for consideration, one must have attended Royal Oak or Dondero High School and graduated more than 10 years ago. Staff members are also eligible if they worked in the building for at least 20 years and have been retired for at least 3 years. Although my student teaching lasted only a semester, I remained chairman of the committee because I wanted this to become a reality. Ultimately, after 2 years of dedication and hard work by the committee, the first induction ceremony took place in November 1996. Having presided over the inaugural ceremony, the committee felt it was fitting to have me introduce this group of inductees on this special weekend. And so I thank the current committee members for allowing me this honor. Nearly 80 years ago, the current building was constructed, and the motto, "Enter here to learn, go forth to serve," was etched in stone above the main entrance. Royal Oak High School, now known as Dondero High School, is a quality educational institution. Students have always been able to enter these halls and learn. Each student was also taught that the purpose of education is found in the service to others. It is in this spirit that the Royal Oak Dondero Hall of Fame recognizes some special students who have acquired an education, applied their knowledge to real situations, and made a positive contribution to their community. The lives of the members of the Dondero Hall of Fame truly reflect the values and mission of our school. They believe in the creed of service that was identified in 1927. Be sure to look in your program and notice the varied achievements of some who have attended this school. You will discover students who have excelled after graduation in a wide variety of endeavors. You will also find faculty members who motivated and nurtured these students and significantly contributed to the positive learning environment in the building. I am pleased to see that some members of the Hall of Fame are with us today. They are wearing carnations. I would like to ask the current members of the Hall of Fame who are in attendance to please stand up at this time so that we can again show our respect and appreciation. Thank you. Our keynote address will be given by our first inductee, Faith Fowler. Faith Fowler is a 1977 graduate of Dondero High School. She went to Albion College, where she graduated Phi Beta Kappa in 1981. She went on to earn a Master of Divinity degree from Boston University School of Theology and a Master of Public Administration from the University of Michigan, Dearborn. Reverend Fowler worked with the Catholic chaplaincy team at Walpole Maximum Security Prison in Massachusetts from 1983 to 1986. From 1986 to 1994, she served as pastor at the William S. Ford Memorial United Methodist Church in Detroit. Since 1994, Reverend Fowler has served as the senior pastor of Cass Community United Methodist Church and executive director of Cass Community Social Services, which she helped to establish. As chief executive, her responsibilities include oversight of fiscal, administrative, and program development for a human service agency that works with the hungry, homeless, seniors, at-risk youth, the mentally ill, and operates 2 free medical clinics. Reverend Fowler has served as an advisory board member of the Detroit Area Agency on Aging and currently serves on the General Board of Church and Society and Wayne State University's Institute of Gerontology Board of Visitors. In 1999, Reverend Fowler was presented with the Spirit of Detroit Award. In 2003, she was selected for the Martin Luther King Jr. Drum Major for Justice Award and was named a Michiganian of the Year by the Detroit News. That same year, she earned the Distinguished Alumnus of the Year from the University of Michigan, Dearborn. In 2005, Reverend Fowler was given the Distinguished Alumni Award from both Albion College and Boston University School of Theology. A member of a church affiliated with Cass Community Church has described her this way: she's relentless in her pursuit of help for those folks who need it and invested not only her time and talent, but all her worldly possessions in order to serve others. Finally, her interests include reading, running, and travel. In fact, she has finished the Boston Marathon 3 times. She has visited Zimbabwe, Africa, Australia, and parts of Europe, to name a few. In an article, Reverend Fowler explained her accomplishments this way: when you get tired, you just keep running. We at Royal Oak Dondero High School are pleased to welcome to our stage Reverend Faith Fowler, our keynote speaker and inductee into our Hall of Fame.
They asked me to make a few comments. I read it's an address now, so bear with me. First, a huge thank you for allowing me to be a part of this group that you're recognizing this day and a part of the great tradition of Dondero High School. It's an honor and a thrill, and I hope I represent you well in my address. We'll see. I got to thinking that many of you here who attended or taught at Dondero have memories that probably merit going over publicly, and so let me share with you some of the list I came up with myself, and you might have others to add later. Homecoming floats, games, dances, proms, classes that seemed to take forever, watching huge wall clocks, classes that went by much too quickly, learning to type with carriages that needed to be returned, learning to drive, that first ticket, starting to date, starting to dance, starting to drink, I'm sorry. Gym clothes that you forgot on Friday, tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches, learning that chocolate was a food group, having your senses used, hearing the trains go by early in the morning as you are out on the field. Maybe you're thinking about music that was important to you when you were here. The Moody Blues and Jethro Tull and Elton John all ring out for me. I'm sure you have a different selection. Wearing varsity jackets and sweaters, sitting in the bleachers, paying someone to be your science lab partner, or maybe you're the one who was paid. Always activity. Always something very important to do, some of it involving drama. The Oak, the Acorn, Genesis, band, orchestra, sports, cheerleading, the Senate. There was always something to do if you wanted to do it. Here's the thing that sticks with me almost 30 years later. It's not the building and it's not the school name, although both are important. It was the teachers. Let me say it again. It was the teachers who invested in you and inspired you and generated a passion in you and saw potential in you even when you didn't see it yourself. I remember distinctly Joe Parker, who taught me to march 8 to 5 and got me up in the morning early and took me to Toledo and Europe. And I remember one day him standing out in the middle of the lot. We had gone over routine over and over and over again, and he said, "You're no longer lousy band, now you're mediocre." And we took that as the highest compliment. I remember Mr. Volz, who said that you needed to be prepared to debate, that half of the debate was perception, that yes, you should be compelling, and yes, you should argue with great passion, and you should, go through all the lines of all the investigation you had done, but you should seem that you knew what you were doing, and that was half the fight. I remember when he called me into his office and said that his wife didn't understand TPing was a sign of affection. I remember Ms. Breakville. She was the first Ms. I knew. She helped me love the theater, something I still do today. I remember going to the Fisher Theater and sitting so far up we needed binoculars, but it was great and grand. She taught me about American writers, Emerson and Thoreau and Frost and others, and what a great love I've had of them all of my life. She told me that when you write, you should not only be creative, that you should have memorable quotations, something I try and use today. It's the teachers that stand out, the men and the women who probably could have made a lot more money elsewhere, but wanted to give back to us. And your list is different. I saw Mr. Rockwell and Mr. Streeter and certainly Principal Martin. They all had a role to play, and even maybe for you, some of the teachers were janitors and lunch ladies, people who listened to you when you still had a lot of acne and you parted your hair in the middle and it was long and straight and sometimes greasy. It was the teachers that were so important. Here's a second thing I'd say today during my address that's really just comments, that in the long run, if you've been concerned about Dondero closing, although Pastor Carr told me on the way in that all of his schools are now closed, I only closed a sorority, that there's a fight for you, not to save Dondero, but to speak up for public education. You hear a lot today, a lot of negative things today about teachers who are with students and people can't read or write or count. I'm telling you what, we were served well by this school. We could go to any school in the country and do well for what we learned here. And it was a public school. And one of the things we learned is you go to school with people who are different, people who are slower, people who are smarter, People who have nice clothes, people who have barely any clothes. People who are geeks and gurus and jocks and nerds and druggies and everyone else under the sun. And somehow we had an appreciation one for the other. And what a great preparation for the world in which we live. Public education is universal education, means it's for everybody. And it prepares you for life. It says diversity is good. And that's as important as learning to read or write or count or do science labs. If you're looking for a fight, I'd recommend standing up for public schools because they're in danger. People are leaving in droves, especially city schools, because there are private schools and religious schools and charter schools, which are all good. But what happens after the drain? I'd invite you to advocate for public schools so that other people and other people's children get the kind of education we got here. A good education. And I'd remind you that public, I think, speaks to the phrase we were reminded of by our MC, that it was instilled in us that we came here not only to learn to be smart, but to learn to serve, to learn to contribute, to learn to give back, to learn to make a difference. That it's a public school in so much as you're reminded that the taxpayers are paying for your books and then there was an obligation to give back, to make the world a better place. It's a public school, and you should fight for them. Dr. Martin Luther King said, "Service is the rent you pay for being on the planet." He also wrote that everyone can be great. We need a bigger stage because everyone can serve. And to learn, go forth to give back so you can keep the spirit of Dondero alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Fowler. Now, let's meet our other inductees. The first is Richard Beer. Richard Beer was a 1950 graduate of Royal Oak High School. Although cerebral palsy prevented him from following his dream of practicing law, he found other ways to impact the field. Mr. Beer was the director of the Adams Pratt Oakland County Law Library. He earned a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Michigan and went to Wayne State University's law school for a year and a half before he had to stop because it was too rough. At the time, they were not allowing tape recorders in the classroom. In 1960, he began his career as a temporary custodian for the law library. He was named director 9 years later after he earned a master's degree in library science from Wayne State. The library under Mr. Beer's stewardship grew from about 8,000 volumes to more than 50,000 when he retired in 1993. He was the recipient of several awards, including the Marion Gallagher Award from the American Association of Law Libraries and the Liberty Bell Award from the Oakland County Bar Association. This award honors a non-lawyer who promotes better understanding and respect for law in the courts. He also served as the first chairman of the Orion Township Planning Commission and Zoning Board and was a guest lecturer on legal research at Oakland University for 25 years. Mr. Beer also battled Lou Gehrig's disease late in life, and he passed away in 2003. Richard Beer is represented today by his daughter, Lori McCormick. We welcome him into the Dondero Hall of Fame.
My name is Lori McCormick, and I'm here accepting this award for my dad, Richard L. Beer, who was a 1950 class graduate of Royal Oak High, and later went on to become the Oakland County Law Librarian. And he has since passed away, and this is a very wonderful honor to accept for him. Thank you.
The next inductee is Tom Carr. Tom Carr is a 1976 graduate of Dondero High School. While at Dondero, Mr. Carr was a letter winner in football, basketball, and baseball. In fact, he was the MVP of the league in football in his senior year. He went on to play football at Albion College and was a co-captain of the 1979 team. He graduated from Albion in 1980 and went on to Colgate Rochester Divinity School, where he graduated in 1985 with honors, earning a Master of Divinity degree. He was ordained into the Christian ministry at the First Baptist Church of Royal Oak as a minister of the American Baptist Churches USA. Reverend Carr has served at churches in Ohio and Rochester, New York. He began working with American Baptist youth nationally, planning and leading national youth conferences in California, Colorado, and Wisconsin. During this time, he developed his concern for religious communities and their responsibility for environmental justice by starting a group with the church that became a model for American Baptist churches throughout the country. Since 1992, Reverend Carr has been senior minister at First Baptist Church of West Hartford, Connecticut. He is the founder and president of the Interreligious Eco-Justice Network of Connecticut. In 2005, his book, Reflections for Prayer, was published. He and his wife, Peg, have 2 children. The committee proudly inducts Reverend Tom Carr into the Dondero Hall of Fame.
My name's Tom Carr. I'm the class of '76, and it really is a thrill to be inducted. It's just been wonderful to come back and wander the halls. It's been the first time in 30 years since I've been back in the building. And the thing I remember most was the relationships with the students and the teachers. Even though I did, sports, that's all I did. It was just a wonderful experience. And I've even forgotten the motto. The motto is "Enter here to learn, go forth to serve." I think that really is a really good motto. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So I'm really happy to be here.
The next inductee is Edna Hoffman. Edna Hoffman taught mathematics here from 1944 through 1966. Some of her students remember her putting numerous comments on almost 200 tests and homework papers each day and every day, which amounted to as close to personal tutoring as one could get during that time period. In fact, the margins were filled with comments, corrections, and suggestions. As a result, many students acquired a respect and love of mathematics based on their experience in Mrs. Hoffman's classes. Mrs. Hoffman was dedicated to serving her profession as well as her community by sponsoring the Future Teachers Club. Not only did she devote time to meetings with students in this capacity, but also organized a yearly week in the field for those interested in careers in education. The students involved in this group would go into various classrooms in Royal Oak schools and try their hand at teaching. Mrs. Hoffman had to work diligently to get the support of many teachers who would allow their classes to be conducted by high school students. With her support, many of her students won scholarships and became math majors in college, as well as teachers themselves. In the early 1960s, Mrs. Hoffman was named Teacher of the Year by the Michigan Education Association. Edna Hoffman has passed away. Representing her today is her daughter, Jane Hoffman Hacken, also a Royal Oak High graduate, as we induct her into the Hall of Fame.
I'm here to represent my mother, Edna Hoffman, who taught for 20-some years here at Dondero, and there are many, many stories, but the thing I know is that she got up very early every morning and looked at everybody's homework paper, and that was just essential. She didn't miss anything that kids were trying to handle.
The next inductee is John Kerr. John Kerr graduated from Dondero in 1958. He earned 8 varsity letters at Dondero, which included letters in baseball and basketball. For his efforts, he was awarded the coveted Morrison Trophy at Dondero in 1958. He also graduated with honors. Mr. Kerr earned his bachelor's and master's in business administration from the University of Michigan, where he was a member of the 1962 NCAA Baseball National Champions. In fact, he played a pivotal role in getting the Wolverines to the national stage. At regionals, he pitched 19 straight innings, 2 complete games, and posting victories over Illinois, the Big Ten champion that year, and Western Michigan, all on one day. His coach, Don Lund, who was a former major leaguer and went on to become U of M's associate athletic director, said, "There's no doubt in my mind that it is the greatest athletic feat that I've ever been involved with. There's no question Kerr's pitching was the key to Michigan winning the national championship." After a 5-1 victory over Illinois, he came right back to defeat Mid-American Conference champ Western Michigan 3-2 in 10 innings. Mr. Kerr even drove in the winning run with a sacrifice fly. After college, Mr. Kerr went to work for American Motors Corporation as an accountant. He rose to controller of the AMC plant in Toledo, Ohio. In the 1970s, Mr. Kerr went to work for Volkswagen as Vice President of Finance for 6 years before being promoted to Chief Financial Officer of Volkswagen of America, President and CEO, and ultimately President of Volkswagen of North America for 12 years. His career in the auto industry spanned 36 years. He and his wife Sharon, also a Dondero graduate, has 3 children and 3 grandchildren. We welcome Mr. John Kerr into the Dondero Hall of Fame.
My name is John Kerr, and of course this is one of the highlights of my life to be get such an honor with the great illustrious people that I'm looking at in the background. And you want a memory of Royal Oak Dondero, but let me just give you a memory as I look at the wall up there and look at all the honorees. The first one I came to took me back to my baseball career. I looked up there and I saw Robert Groves, who was my coach when they started Little League Baseball in Royal Oak in about 1950, and I was 10 years old, and we had a pretty good ball club, which included some people like Bill Freehand and so forth. But he had just returned from AAA baseball, and he was just a great coach that got me off to a good start. And then I had a good career here at Dondero under Jack McLean, and went on to play in college. So that wall brings back a lot of memories, and I'm certainly honored to be part of it.
The next inductee is Hans Kuhl. Hans Kuhl is a January 1951 graduate of Royal Oak High School. He was the treasurer of his class. He graduated from Princeton in 1955 with a degree in electrical engineering. He then went on to the California Institute of Technology to earn his PhD in electrical engineering in 1959 and began a career as a professor. In fact, he served as a professor for 45 years, 11 of those as chairman of the Electrical Engineering Electrophysics Department at the University of Southern California. Professor Kuhl received the USC Associates Award for Teaching Excellence in 1964, USC's highest award for exceptional teaching of both undergraduate and graduate courses. He was elected a Fellow of the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers in 1980 for his theory of antennas and electronic plasmas, useful in missile defense systems, missile defense applications, and in the prediction of the behavior of communication antennas on space vehicles during re-entry. He was also instrumental in the design of the new electrical engineering curriculum at USC and recognized as an innovator of the 21st century by the American Society of Engineering Educators. Professor Kuhl's research also includes the study of localized nonlinear pulses called solitons in electronic plasmas, and in optical fibers. Solitons have an important technological impact in the area of fiber optic communication, where light pulses in the form of solitons are used for broadband information transmission. He and his wife Anna have 2 children and 2 grandchildren. We welcome Professor Hans Kuhl into the Dondero Hall of Fame.
My name is Hans Kuhl, and I was a member of the class of 1951 here at called Royal Oak High School at that time. And we're going through a ceremony here, which I'm really looking forward to. I've spent the last day or so with my high school class reunion and seeing people I hadn't seen for 55 years, which was really a blast. And I'm looking forward to the ceremony.
The next inductee is Grant J. Maudlin. Grant J. Maudlin was a 1940 graduate of Royal Oak High School. He was a member of the basketball and baseball teams and involved in the Boys Forestry Club. Shortly after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, Mr. Maudlin enlisted and served in the United States Marine Corps, where he saw action in the Pacific Theater. After his service in the Marines, he earned a degree in business and public service from Michigan State University. At age 31 and married with 2 children, Mr. Maudlin entered the arena of public service in Royal Oak. He was elected as city commissioner for 12 years, serving from 1953 to 1965. In addition, he chaired a Royal Oak Administrative Recreation Committee, the child of both the city and the school district, and led its reorganization in 1961 when it was placed under the direction of the city manager and became the Royal Oak Recreation Advisory Board. There were tough challenges and conflicts as Royal Oak endured rapid growth. Water issues leading to the 12-town drain and building issues involving the Royal Oak Library, the police station, and the animal shelter all occurred during Mr. Maudlin's terms of service. Mr. Maudlin's vision and dedication facilitated the development of the Royal Oak Golf Course with Don Soper, and William Bowman Hospital benefited from his role as liaison with the City of Royal Oak. Finally, he served on the Selective Service Board during the Vietnam War. Grant J. Maudlin passed away in 2004. Accepting his induction into the Dondero Hall of Fame are 3 of his 4 daughters, Gail, Susie, and Kathy.
Knowing that my father was a lifelong Royal Oak devotee and loved Dondero. He was a civic leader when I was a child. He was a commissioner and on the recreation board, and I always was well aware of his roots in the city and my grandfather's. And now I have another sister who's a teacher here at Dondero who carries on the tradition. So it's a pleasure to be here and receive the award posthumously for my dad. Thank you.
The next inductee is James Mead. James Mead was a well-liked teacher here in the 1950s and 1960s, where he taught English and speech. He was also the director of radio broadcasting for Royal Oak Schools. In 1958, Mr. Mead was the primary developer of one of the earliest low-power radio stations in the United States, Dondero's own WOAK. Low-power stations only became a reality in the late 1940s and were before this station primarily on college campuses. Some believe WOAK may have been the very first high school-based 10-watt FM station in the country. After his years of teaching at Dondero, Mr. Mead went on to teach at Central Michigan University and was later named Professor Emeritus. He published his doctoral thesis on low-power radio, which led to the publication of the book Guide to School Radio. Although the Federal Communications Commission discontinued low-power broadcasting for a time, The Commission reinstated low power about 2 years ago and is seeking advisory comments. Dr. Mead was valedictorian at his own high school, Harrison High School, in 1933 and earned his bachelor's and doctor of education from Wayne State University. He has 4 children, 9 grandchildren, and 12 great-grandchildren. He is 90 years young, and we welcome Dr. James Mead into the Dondero Hall of Fame.
Dr. Mead, I was here at Dondero beginning 1948 until 1963. I was responsible for the beginning of WOAK, and for 7 years I was the manager. And I left then to take a position at Central Michigan University.
The next inductee is Kenneth Noble. Dr. Kenneth Noble was a valued member of the Dondero faculty from 1961 to 1996 as a social studies teacher. He also served as department chairman for 15 years and was the girls' basketball coach and assistant athletic director for some time. In addition, he was known as the voice of the Dondero Marching Band for 25 years. Ken has served on the board of directors of the Royal Oak Schools Credit Union for 34 years and chaired the board for 31. He was a pioneer leader of the Royal Oak Education Association when collective bargaining was legalized for teachers. In fact, he served as the ROEA president and Michigan Education Association Region 7 president for 1 term. Ken is a leader in economic education. After his retirement from Dondero, he provided ideas and materials on teaching economics to teachers in 35 local districts and 18 intermediate school districts. He was the major contributing writer for a 4th grade workbook published by McGraw-Hill. For his efforts, Ken was named the Economic Educator of the Year in 2003 by the Michigan Council on Economic Education. He currently teaches at Oakland Community College and provides in-services in social studies and economics to educators throughout the state. Ken earned his bachelor's degree from Western Michigan University, master's degrees from the University of Michigan and Walsh College, and earned a PhD in curriculum and secondary education from Michigan State University. He and his wife Linda have 2 children and 2 grandchildren. Linda has been a strong supporter of Dondero as well. At this time, we proudly induct Dr. Kenneth Noble into the Dondero Hall of Fame.
My name is Ken Noble, and I taught Dondero for 35 years, and I'm very proud and humbled to be included in this induction group. My memories of Dondero are too many to list, but I guess the most important one is just the wonderful colleagues and the fine students that I came in contact with over those 35 years. Thank you.
The next inductee is David George Penny. David George Penny is a January 1958 graduate of Dondero High School. He earned a Bachelor of Science degree from Wayne State University in 1963 and his Master of Science and PhD degrees from UCLA in 1966 and 1969, respectively. Dr. Penny became a faculty member at the University of Illinois Chicago for a period of time before going to the Wayne State University School of Medicine in 1977, where he served as a professor of physiology until his retirement this year. However, he is still the director of general surgical research at Providence Hospital in Southfield, where he directs the scholarly activities of 19 surgical residents and 10 attending staff physicians. Dr. Penny's dominant interest in his career has been on the medical and scientific aspects of carbon monoxide. While he is familiar with the effects of acute carbon monoxide poisoning, he is also one of a few experts in the world on chronic low-level CO poisoning, often the most difficult to diagnose, treat, and prove. He is the author of several books and over 100 papers on carbon monoxide, which constitutes more published work on the topic than anyone in the world. In 1997, Dr. Penny was invited to Europe by the World Health Organization to work with 11 other experts from around the world to develop CO standards on a global scale. Locally, Dr. Penny has been active in assisting our school district in developing programs in elementary education, including a very successful annual science fair. He is also a local historian. In fact, he is a fifth-generation Royal Oak resident. His great-grandfather, Frank Lincoln Knowles, was the former landowner where Dondero sits today. Dr. Penny co-authored Twigs and Acorns, a Royal Oak history book with Lois Lance, and is the webmaster for the historic Royal Oak website. He and his wife Linda have 4 children and 6 grandchildren. We welcome Dr. David George Penny into the Dondero Hall of Fame.
The honor of being inducted into the Hall of Fame here at Royal Oak Dondero High School is really, really wonderful for me. This school is built on my great-grandfather's farm, the Knowles Farm. My dad and his brothers and sisters, and they lived right across the street from the school. They went to school here and graduated. My 2 boys, Lauren and Morgan Penny, graduated from this school. My 2 brothers and I both graduated, so it's kind of 3 generations plus the fact that this school was built on great-grandpa's property is really meaningful for me.
The next inductee is James Strain. James Strain is a 1950 graduate of Royal Oak High School. Although he is linked more closely with the January 1951 class, he took extra classes to graduate early. He attended the University of Michigan and majored in botany, following in his father's footsteps. A brief sidebar, his father was a science teacher here. Dr. Strain then earned his medical degree from Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine in Cleveland, Ohio. He also graduated from the New York Psychoanalytic Institute. Dr. Strain has served at the Mount Sinai School of Medicine in New York since 1979. He has been an attending psychiatrist, a professor of clinical psychiatry, and director of the Division of Behavioral Medicine and Consultation Psychiatry. Since 1990, he has been a professor of psychiatry and is an authority on the psychological care of the medically ill. He has participated in studies funded by the National Institute of Mental Health and the National Cancer Institute. He was involved in the development of software for use in the consultation setting, and it is employed in Mexico, Portugal, Argentina, Brazil, and Australia. Dr. Strain has worked with the Disaster Psychiatry Program, which addressed the needs of family survivors, workers, volunteers, police officers, and firefighters affected by the attack on the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. Dr. Strain has over 500 publications and has presented over 750 national and international lectures. He has earned the 3rd Earl of Lichfield Award from Oxford University, England, and the Hackett Memorial Award from the Academy of Psychosomatic Medicine. Just 2 weeks ago, at the age of 73, he published his latest book on psychosomatic medicine. It is considered in the vanguard of this new field in psychiatry. Finally, a family has just donated $5 million to the Mount Sinai School of Medicine, which will be used to give scholarships in Dr. Strain's name to students attending the school. He and his wife Gladys have 3 sons and 6 grandchildren. We proudly induct Dr. James Strain into the Dondero Hall of Fame.
I'm Jim Strain, the class of 1950 from Dondero, and I'm extremely pleased to be honored by this Hall of Fame induction. It's actually a two-generation honor. My father taught at this school for about 35 years. He was one of the teachers of biology, and I must say the family had a very, very strong attachment to Dondero High School. And now coming back after all these years, I'm really touched to see the place, see the hall, see the people, and it's a marvelous honor to become part of the Hall of Fame. And I know my father would be deeply pleased to know that this had happened.
Today's induction brings the total membership in the Hall of Fame to nearly 70 individuals. While the members of the Hall of Fame differ in their year of graduation and their specific occupation and area of excellence, when we examine the lives of the members of the Dondero Hall of Fame, a common set of characteristics links them all together. Each has a unique skill and talent. Each developed those skills and talents while in attendance here at Royal Oak or Dondero High School. Each cares about people, and each has demonstrated a spirit of service to others. It is this combination of talent, motivation, achievement, and service that the Hall of Fame recognizes. Each member has in fact lived the mission of the school. Each has entered the building to learn and gone forth and served the community. Let's give another round of applause to the 11 newest members of the Dondero Hall of Fame. Thank you. The new inductees and their representatives will be honored with a reception in the Student Commons area immediately following this ceremony. All are welcome. With the merging of Royal Oak's two high schools in the fall, the future of the Hall of Fame is uncertain. The committee is examining a number of options. I would again like to thank the Hall of Fame Committee for inviting me back to preside over this ceremony, and to thank them for the many hours of volunteer time that they devoted to make this a success. You will recognize members of the committee by their name tags and green ribbons. I would also like to thank James Rex, the current Student Senate President, for his assistance this afternoon. The committee is indebted to the Royal Oak Foundation for Public Education, who made a significant financial contribution to underwrite the committee's expenses. Also, a special thank you goes to Ann Maudlin and the Student Publications class here at Dondero, who produced the program. In addition, thank you to Sandy Roberts, the secretary to their principal, for assisting the committee in countless ways. Finally, we appreciate Mr. Rick Hartzel and the Dondero A Cappella Choir for their participation here today. On this very date, 47 years ago, George A. Dondero himself gave the commencement address to the Dondero class of 1959. I'd like to close this afternoon by sharing a part of his remarks to that graduating class, remarks which take on special meaning even today, and especially as we mark the closing of Dondero High School. Life does not expect all of you to be an Edison or a Lincoln. It does expect you to be true. I am not bound to succeed, said Lincoln, but I am bound to live up to the light I have. The whole purpose of education is to give light. There has never been a time in the history of this nation when sober, serious, clear, and independent citizens, not flippant or self-conceited, is as necessary as it is today. The helpers in a community are those who, by honest effort, upright conduct, and diligent labor, are making people where they live happier and the community better. Analyze yourself. Explore your wishes and inclinations. then choose the work from which would come real satisfaction to you in its performance. Give to the world the best that is in you, and the best will come back to you. That is what life expects of you, and from all of us, until that time comes when we all hope to meet in the land where it is always June. And now, the Dondero a cappella choir, under the direction of Mr. Rick Hartzell, will sing the closing song from the balcony. Thank you.